Hello everyone and welcome back to Walkthrough Wednesday. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a classic and fun programming problem, and that is how to reverse an integer that is presented as input. So in today's example, I'm going to be doing this with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but this algorithm, this process we're going to learn about, it applies no matter which language you're going to be using. And in some languages, it's actually easier to do this than others. So what I have on the page here is just a basic layout that I've built using Bootstrap 4. So let me go ahead and show you some of that code now. So here's the index.html. I have my head, the body, and basically I've built out a form. And I have an ID on that form, so I can grab it using jQuery. I have a label, I have an input where I can type in some type of value. I also have an ID on that input, which is going to be useful in just a second. I have a button here that says reverse. So we're going to type in the number in the field and then click the button. So I need to set all of that up in my JavaScript. So right here I'm importing jQuery and some JavaScript that Bootstrap uses for some of its UI components. And then here is my script import, app.js. So right now it is just a blank file. So let me go ahead and start writing this. The first thing I need to do is I need to be able to respond to the driving force of the application. So what does that mean exactly? Someone's going to type in a number, let's say 123, and then I need to be able to do something when they click this button. So because I put this in a form, if you click a button inside a form element, by default it's going to try to submit that form, and you're going to see something really weird. So if I click this, then the page kind of reloaded and it put a question mark up here. So anytime you see that, that means that you're using an actual HTML form, and that form is submitting to itself, to the current page. So the first thing I want to do is I want to prevent that default behavior there. So to do that, I need some way of selecting the form. So I'm going to tell jQuery to go out and find the thing with ID form and listen for the submit event. And we're going to receive that event. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel it by saying e.prevent default. So that's going to prevent the page from reloading and putting that question mark up at the top. All right, so we've got that overhead out of the way. Now it's time for us to actually get in and start worrying about this algorithm. So the first thing I need in order to approach this problem, I need to know what number was typed into the box. So what I can do is I can say let original equal tell jQuery to go out and find the thing with ID number, because I put that on that input box. And specifically, let's get the value, okay? And something interesting about when you use .val with an input box is that it will always come back as a string. We need to be able to work in numbers here. So to do that, I need to turn this into a number. So there are a few ways you can do that. I could use number with parentheses around it like this. That's a valid way of doing it. I could just put, this is kind of an obscure shorthand, I could just put a plus symbol in front of it, and that would work too. I'm going to leave the plus symbol here. So this part right here is going to say what is typed into the box, but it's going to come back as a string. So if I type 1, 2, 3, it's going to be the characters 1, 2, and 3 stringed together, not the integer 123. But by putting the plus icon, it's going to turn it into 123. So I've got that now. And so now this is where I'm going to start thinking about how to do this. So let's kind of brainstorm this for a second. Let's say that the number is 123, okay? The end result, we would like to end up with 321. So how do we get from there to the end there? How do we go about that process? So there are a few different ways we can do this, but it has to do with the number 10, okay? That's a key point here. So if you're looking at this, you know, can you think of a way to isolate the last digit? So how can we get just 3? right? So one way I see is that if you divide by 10, 3 is the remainder, okay? So 120 divided by 10 will have a remainder of 3. 123 divided by 10 will have a remainder of 3. If it were 120, then the remainder would be 0, which is also the last digit here. So we need to have a process of getting the last digit by finding out the remainder after dividing by 10. But then once I have that last digit, how do I then turn that into basically 12 and then 1? And meanwhile over here, I need to kind of be building this up. So I need to have 3 and then 32 and then 321. So it's like we're breaking down one number and building up the reversed version of it. So how exactly do we do this? Well, you can see that we're doing the same action repetitively, right? We're always plucking off that last digit and placing it on another number. And so since this is a repetitive action, it makes sense to use a loop here. So I'm going to go ahead and start writing the code for this loop. I'm going to have a variable called, let's see here, we'll say let reversed equal 0. We'll start it out at 0. And for this one, you can use any type of loop, whatever makes sense to you. I'm going to be using a while loop. And I'm going to say while original is greater than 0. Okay? So you can see I'm destroying this number, and eventually, you know, if I kept going one more, this would end up being 0 because there's nothing left. So this loop will eventually come to a halt. So while that's going on, while there's still value left in the original number, what I want to do is I'm going to get the last digit first. So let last digit equal, I need to find the value after dividing by 10. So the remainder after dividing by 10. So the way I can do that is I can say original mod 10, the modulus operator. That means divide by this number and then get the remainder. Okay, so that's going to give me the last digit. And once I have that last digit, what I can do now is I can say the original is going to be equal to the original divided by 10. But this actually isn't going to work in JavaScript. This is an example where in other languages, this problem is very elegant and very simple, but in JavaScript, there's kind of a wrench thrown into things because in JavaScript, 123 divided by 10 is 12.3. It's not just 12, right? We want that truncation to occur. We don't want 12.3, we want 12. We're trying to get from here, from 123 to 12. We're trying to pluck off that last digit. So to do that, we have to take a few more extra steps. I'm going to say math.floor original divided by 10. Okay? And then finally, what do I do? How do I get, so let's imagine here, how do I get from 0 to 3, and then from 3 to 32, and from 32 to 321? There's some type of pattern here, okay? So you have to look at this one and say, what do we do to get from there to there and there to there? And the overarching theme here, the recurring logic, is that we're going to say reversed is equal to reversed times 10 plus last digit. Okay, so when it's 0, we're going to multiply that by 10, which is still 0, and then add last digit, which the first time around will be 3. So that leaves us with 3. The next time around, we're going to say 3 times 10, which gives us 30, and then add 2. So that gives us 32. The next time around, we're going to say 32 times 10 gives us 320, and then we're going to add last digit, which is 1. Okay, so that is how we are breaking down the number and building it back up. So once we finish all that, this will keep going until that number is destroyed, that number is exhausted. So now I just want to display it on the screen. And I already have a mechanism for doing that. I have an H2 on the page. It has an ID of feedback. So that's where I would like to place this number. So I'm going to select my feedback, and I'm going to set its text to be reversed. So I'm just going to access that variable. So this is after the loop completes, so that variable should be finished and have that final value in there. So let's see this in action. Okay, so I'm going to go look at my web page, refresh the page, and I'm going to type 123, and I get 321. Let's try something else. So 117, get 711. What about 007? We get 7 because when you turn 007 into a number, it just is 7. So it's the same as if I just type 7 here. So that's not the end of the world. And then 701, 107, 7012, 2107. All right, so this appears to be working. And like I said, this is an algorithm that, you know, when you're first learning it, it's not something that really comes naturally. It does take a little bit of analysis and thinking about math and stuff like that. But it is just a really cool problem once you get the hang of it, how using just math, you can take this number and compute a reversed number, you know, looking at it the way we traditionally look at it. So 123 would become 321. Anyways, so I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough of this interesting algorithm.